Ambition's at the heart of William Shakespeare's tragedy, Macbeth, as it highlights the dark desires of the main characters and how far they are willing to go to achieve their passions. Ambition's defined as a strong impulse to achieve or do something, and whilst an admirable quality, Shakespeare warns us that ambition without morality can lead to downfall and ruin. Through Shakespeare's use of literary devices such as emotive language and foreshadowing, it's clear that the characters of Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, and the Weird Sisters highlight the dangers that follow when acting out on ambitious desires without a moral conscience. Though influenced by supporting characters throughout the play, Macbeth's true downfall is the result of his own ambition. We watch Macbeth's ambition grow as the play progresses. For example, when Macbeth is greeted by the Weird Sisters as Thane of Glamis, Cawdor, and ultimately King, Macbeth says, "Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more." This denotes that although Macbeth had the option to dismiss the Weird Sisters, he chose to inquire further and explore the likelihood of their prophecies in order to feed his escalating grid and ambition. Foreshadowing his future in the play, Macbeth says, "I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which overleaps itself and falls on the other." During this point in the play, Macbeth still holds a moral conscience, which we can see through his confession that his only motive to murder King Duncan is the result of his own ambition, whilst also acknowledging the potential consequences that may come by feeding into his ambition. In the same scene, Macbeth says, "False face must hide what false heart doth know." The fact that Macbeth is deteriorating is supported by this quote, since he would have murdered everyone who stood in his way of him maintaining his position as king, which is exactly what he does to his own friend Banquo, who suspects, thou playest most foully for it. We also see Macbeth's moral conscience truly fade further away from him by the careless murder of Macduff's family when he threatens his throne. Therefore, Macbeth's ambition continues to grow as Macbeth allows himself to become absorbed by his ambitious desires, although it is undeniable that he wouldn't have been able to explore said ambitions without the guidance of Lady Macbeth. Whilst Macbeth's ambition grows throughout the play, the audience is explicitly made aware of Lady Macbeth's rash ambition from the moment we meet her, which ultimately leads to her death as well as Macbeth's. Lady Macbeth is a surly femme fatale who acts as an evil conscience on Macbeth's shoulder throughout the murder of King Duncan. She constantly pushes and overrides all of his objections. For example, when he hesitates to murder King Duncan, Lady Macbeth questions and threatens his masculinity by saying, "When you dost do it, then you are a man," which causes Macbeth to prove his masculinity by going through with the murder. Lady Macbeth understands that they share similar ambitions, but she also accepts the fact that while Macbeth has the ambition, he lacks the courage to go through with it alone, as well as the fact that Macbeth's kindness stands in the way of his ambition, which therefore results in her pushing Macbeth into his desires for him. This belief is let known to the viewers early in the play when she says, "It is too full of the milk of human kindness, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it." Unlike Macbeth, Lady Macbeth neglects to consider the consequences that may unfold when acting on her desires, which we can clearly see when paranoia overtakes her later in the play, as she quotes, "All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand." The motivation of the Weird Sisters' ambition is less clear when comparing it to Lady Macbeth and Macbeth's. Given that their main objective was to follow Macbeth's path of self-destruction just for chaos, they can only be held partially responsible for Macbeth's destiny. They make an effort to meet with Macbeth in order to give him the prophecies, but their ambiguity in their predictions should not be overlooked, because they never directly tell Macbeth how to make the prophecies come true. As a result, like I said, they cannot be held accountable for the decisions that Macbeth makes later. When Macbeth later decides to go to the Weird Sisters for confirmation that he would remain king, they realise the impact that they had on his ambition. They even attempt to dissuade him from asking by responding, "Seek to know no more." As can be seen, even though Macbeth has given in to his ambition and lost sight of his own morality, the Weird Sisters are aware of the direction Macbeth's ambition is leading him and decides to discreetly warn him of the dangers that lie ahead. In conclusion, while the Weird Sisters partially contributed to the downfall of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth acted as a strong instigator for Macbeth's initial action, it's evident to see that the choices Macbeth made when deciding to feed into his own ambition resulted in the downfall of the play. Macbeth allowed himself to constantly be pushed and guided into fueling his growing ambition until he lost control of himself and eventually lost sense of his morals. Had Macbeth waited to see if the prophecies would come true naturally, all the ruin that occurred in the play could have been avoided.